Hey, everybody, and welcome to How to Film Weddings podcast, episode number 6. I am Nick Miller, and I am hosting solo today. It was John's birthday yesterday, and I think he might be passed out or maybe taking a nap because he's a year older. I'm not exactly sure, but I'm super excited for our guest today. It is Jay Wasley of Everly Films. Jay, say hi.
Hey, everybody.
There we go. Jay and I met at the Venture Workshop in the fall of 2017, and we just kind of got to know each other a little bit. Super excited that I'm able to spend the next, 45 minutes an hour just chatting about your business and how you run things. So why don't you, for people that might not know who you are, just share a little bit of your story and who you are and what you do.
Well, there are a lot of people who don't know who I am. You say you met me at Venture, and Venture is a workshop that myself, Forestry Films, Seth Dunlap, and White and Reverie host together. But when everybody comes to Venture, they pretty much just know who White and Reverie are. They don't know who the rest of us are. So, yeah, a lot of people don't know who I am. So I'm Jay. My name's Jay Wasley. I've been a wedding videographer or wedding cinematographer or wedding filmmaker or wedding storyteller, whatever you want to call it, for the last, I would say the last 7 years or so. I think my first wedding film was 7 years ago. And yeah, my wedding company is called Everly Films. And then my non-wedding company, my just commercial brand is just self-titled, just Jay Wasley. So that's who I am in a nutshell.
Cool. So how'd you get started? How'd you get into the, wedding industry?
So I'd always, I guess I'll backtrack. I went to school and I went through a fire academy to become a firefighter. And once I went through the fire academy, I realized, man, I do not want to be a firefighter. I was applying and I was doing like ride-alongs and stuff, and I've got nothing but I have so much mad respect for firefighters, but it's just wasn't for me. It wasn't something I wanted to do. And so then I just, I studied sports medicine at ASU, and I wanted to become a physical therapist. And then when I was looking at physical therapy schools and like seeing like the life of a physical therapist, which isn't a bad life or anything like that, it kind of fell into this is just not for me. So I started a fitness company of my own, and it tanked. It was like the worst thing I've ever done in my entire life. It was just like so bad. I was just so obsessed with like working out and being like, hey, this is how I got buff. This is how you should get buff, type of thing. So stupid. Like, man, if I could erase any time in my life, that would be the time to erase. But there's always two things that were always there, no matter what. And that was music and video. And I played music for my church, but I also did videos for my church. And just like little fun, goofy videos. And it was just like something I always had done and always had so much fun doing. Well, after my oh so crappy fitness business was just like making me depressed and making my wife depressed, because we're just like, man, Jay, what are you doing? My wife's like, hey, why don't you, like, you love doing videos for your church or for our church, like, why don't you do it for like weddings, And this was like I said, this was like 7 years ago. Mm-hmm. So this is when like wedding videography was starting to kind of get that cinematic type feel to it, but it wasn't anything like it is now, but it was just like starting to get a little bit more noticed, kind of changing from that cliche, videographer type of thing to like people were like kind of more interested in it.
Right.
And so I'm like, okay, well, I'll do it if you do it with me. And so she knows nothing about video, and she still knows nothing about video.
How long did that last where your wife was, helping you out?
We did the business together for, I'd say like maybe like 2 years or so. But yeah, so like we started it together and we just like went for it. And I was hitting up everybody I knew. This is, like everybody I knew was getting engaged. I'm just like, hey, let me film your wedding for free or just whatever. If you want to pay me $100, like fine, I'll do it for $100. Like I just jumped in there, and it just started to snowball after that. I did my first video, and then I did my second video, and then people were like, wow, what's Jay doing? Like, he's doing these cool like wedding videos. And so somebody's like, hey, I'll pay you $500 to do my wedding film. I'm just like, whoa, you want to pay me $500?
Exactly, yeah.
Oh my gosh, like I feel like I'm stealing from you. Like, that's amazing, like $500. And then when I'm like, oh, I gotta come up with like pricing. And so like my highest package was $1,500, and my friend got engaged, and she's like, send me your pricing. I'm like, oh, okay. Here's my pricing. And I was so scared and so nervous. And she's like, okay, well, I like the top package, the $1,500 one. I'll do that one. I'm just like, oh my gosh, somebody wants to pay me $1,500 to shoot their wedding. Like, this is the life, you know. But it just kind of kept growing, and like I said, it was a snowball effect for me. You know, I really believe that God was a huge part in everything that I do now and everything that led me up to this. And I just like felt like this is where God wanted me to be. And so he kept giving me opportunity after opportunity, keeping me in this. And yeah, so that's just kind of how it started.
Yeah, that's really cool. It's, you know, kind of similar to my story. You know, I did a couple for free, and then I think the first person paid me, you know, like $800 or whatever, and someone booked my top package that I thought was ridiculous at $1,400, you know, and someone paid me that, and I was like, oh boy. And I, you know, the amount of stuff that I put in that $1,400 package was, you know, ridiculous, you know, now that I look back on it, you know. But yeah, my story is very similar like that. So that's really cool. And then, so you've been doing the wedding stuff for about seven years still. Are you still doing weddings, or are you kind of, you know, have your hands in other stuff?
Yeah. So for me, weddings were never the end game. I started doing weddings because I saw the opportunity and I saw the benefit of where weddings was such a great place to grow with style and filmmaking and all that, because you're thrown into this like chaos of a day. And like, it doesn't matter how many weddings you filmed, you can admit that weddings like can be chaotic, you know, because brides, their emotions can be all over the place, and their parents' emotions can be all over the place, and it can not always be positive emotion. It can be a little negative, and it can be a little stressful.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then like, if you screw up, like you can't really go back and be like, I need you to do that kiss again because I missed it, you know. Or if you have bad audio from toasts, like you have to do a lot of problem solving to figure out, well, how am I going to fix this?
Yeah.
So with weddings, like, man, there's so much growth with like who you are as a filmmaker. And people who look down on, like, filmmakers who look down on wedding videographers are stupid, because I just like, it's such a great way to be challenged, learn from your mistakes, and grow fast. So for me, weddings were never the end game. It was always like, I'm going to do this to learn and experience and grow. And then I'm like, I want to do like commercial projects. I want to make my own films. Like, I want to make original films, because essentially that's what I was doing at my church, was making original films. Even though they're crappy little, you know, funny church videos,
Sure.
It was still like I had the creativity to create whatever I wanted for them, you know?
Right.
And with weddings, you're kind of boxed in a little bit on what you can do. So I always wanted to be able to create commercial films or original films. And I started just like doing passion projects, where, and a passion project is just that. It's a project where you are investing your own time, your own money, you know, it's all you, and you have full creativity to do whatever the heck you want. And if you're collaborating with other people, then obviously like it's a group thing. But yeah, like I started doing, like, I made my first documentary film, and man, when I made it, I just got hooked and addicted. I'm like, man, this is so fun and so rewarding for me. And like, I didn't even get any money for it, you know. It was just like my own short film. I got a few, like, I sent it to film festivals, and it didn't do too awesome because it was my first film. But I got into some film festivals. I'm like, man, a film festival wants to showcase my film. How cool is this? And then
That's great.
That opened up other opportunities for people who are like, oh, he doesn't just do weddings, he does other things too. And so that, snowballed into a whole bunch of other things. And so, yeah, for me now, I would say 75% of my business is commercial and film work now. And I could stop doing weddings and still be able to provide for my kids and my family and be okay. But I still do weddings because, like I said, I still see that benefit of growing as a filmmaker. And I just like weddings too.
Mm-hmm.
Like weddings are really, really fun. And you also never know who's at these weddings. A couple of weddings from last year, they work for companies that I now do commercial work for, and it's way more profitable than the wedding. But it's like, man, if I stopped doing weddings, I never would have even gotten in front of that person.
Right, man. Yeah, that's one thing that's, I think, so interesting about, just this business, business side of things whenever it comes to networking or getting other jobs or whatever. Like, so many people are just, well, flat out lucky in what happened. You were filming some wedding and, some big time corporate guy is there and he happens to see it and he sees the video, oh, that's, decent enough or whatever. So there's some connection there. So you can, get into, going into work, so, always doing your best and always striving, to be better, can really just help you in your business no matter where you want to go.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
A couple things I wanted to touch on here. One, you talked about, doing passion projects and, like Jay said, if you, really a passion project is just what you're passionate about, filming something, creating something, that you just have an idea for and you just do it on your free time. So what would you say, like someone, who's sitting here thinking, oh, like I'd love to maybe do a passion project, but, my backlog is, I have 15 weddings, I need to edit and, I have all this website upkeep, just all the business kind of stuff. Like what would you say to them to maybe encourage them to do something for themselves and maybe why they should do something like that?
So earlier I said my wife helped me with the business, and when we were trying to have a baby, like she was super stressed out and like we ended up having like a miscarriage and stuff, like our first go around with trying to have kids, and she was just like, what, I'm done. Like I can't be so stressed anymore. And so I'm like, I'm gonna take over the business and take it from there. And that was, and we have 4 kids now, and we have my daughter's 5 now, so like that was a while ago, and it's been the best decision we ever made was just having me take care of the business and take care of it all. But with that being said, I am the most unorganized person, and I don't think I've ever experienced being caught up. I don't know what being caught up is.
I think you posted, was it today or yesterday, someone in a Facebook group said, what's your backlog and what, and you're like, what's being caught up? Like,
yeah, I'm like, what's a final delivery? I don't know what that is. I used to be so great about turn times. I used to be so great about like emails and stuff like that. And it's so hard. And I've kind of, it really stressed me out trying to keep up with my backlog and trying to like get caught up. And it was just like this never ending. It's just being like on a treadmill. It's like you're just in one spot running really hard, but you're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
And so it kept me from opportunities. It kept me from doing things I wanted to do. So I guess really the only advice that I can give anybody about a passion project is just do it, because you're always going to be backlogged. You're always going to have stuff to do. That website is always going to need updating. And there's emails that always need to be responded to. But if you keep putting them there at the front, then you're never going to be able to do stuff. And it ends up like, if you've got that artistic creative itch to do something, it's only going to benefit your overall business to do it, because you're challenging yourself creatively and artistically. And if you get stuck just in the grind, and you're always thinking like, well, what if I did this, and what if I did this, and oh, I can't, I gotta work on this. You're just not, your growth is going to dramatically slow down. And I think if you can just go out and do what you want to do and make time for it and make it a priority over, like, oh, I told this bride that it's a 6-month turnaround and I'm at 4 months. It's okay to do the whole 6 months. It's okay to like get it in the time frame that you said you're going to get it to them and in the contract. You don't have to like be like, I'm going to give it to them early, so I'm the hero. Now I got to work on this other thing, and I got to work on this other thing. I got to work on this other thing. Like, I just think the only advice I can give is just go do it.
Yeah. And you obviously have, taken that, and your kind of passion stuff that you've done for yourself has really taken off, right?
Yeah. And part of what's, passion projects usually start as a creative outlet, but they can end up bringing in profit and money if you do it right. And so, for example, I did my first original short film was called Lost Discovered, and it was me and a few of my buddies went around northern Arizona, and I documented it. I got inspired by a French filmmaker named Matthew Lelay, where he did something similar, like in like the French Alps or something like that. And I'm just like, man, I want to do that here in Arizona with my buddies. So I did it, and it was just kind of like, I wish I could like just take that off the internet because I'm not like super proud of that film. But like the second one I did was so awesome, and I won awards for it. And then people were like, hey, I want to license some of that footage from your film, because it was all like nature stuff. And it's like, oh, what does that mean? What is licensing footage? Like, oh, that's a whole other thing. Like, I get paid for footage that I already did. I don't have to do anything. It's already done. And then it opened up more opportunities for like, submitting these films into film festivals, of getting awards for it. And then there's a lot of people a lot of companies that look at certain film festivals, like who's winning these film festivals, what are these films, and can we hire them to create content for us? Yeah. And so that turned into like, I was making drone films and more like adventure films type things. And, I've gotten gigs with Samsung and Amazon and LG, all because of these passion projects that I made.
Yeah, that's so cool. And so, and that's not to say that if you start making a passion project, you start doing that, Samsung and LG and Amazon and all these places are going to hire you, but but
it puts you in front of them.
Yeah, exactly. That
potentially puts you in front of them.
Right. And so, and not only can it, again, help you from a business standpoint, right, where you could potentially, get hired by all these companies, but it also helps you become a better filmmaker. I mean, it helps you, look at the stuff that you're creating in maybe a different light. There seems to be, kind of for the most part, it's, when we're talking about weddings, there's a pretty kind of standard, formula that most, wedding videos fit in, whereas, here's the couple, they're getting ready. Now here's the ceremony, here's the reception, right? It's very generally speaking, obviously. And so you're doing these passion projects and you're trying new things, and then you're like, oh, this is a really cool, in this adventure film I did, can I have my couples do this? Or can I, do these same kind of effects in a video, now a wedding video. Now, I know that at least for your wedding videos, maybe now today in 2018, your style kind of blends in with a lot of, the speed ramps and the glitching and voiceover, sound effects and that kind of stuff. But I will say, when you were the first person that I ever saw that was doing that kind of stuff, would you say that, I mean, you were definitely in the very minority when you were starting that kind of thing, if really anyone else was doing that.
Yeah, I was working on this commercial project, and I had to learn how to do speed ramping, and I didn't know what speed ramping was. I knew what it was, but I just didn't know how to do it. So I looked up a video by Joe Simon on how to do speed ramping in Premiere Pro, because that's what I use. And I'm just like, I can't, I don't want to like mess with like, this sounds so bad. I'm like, I don't want to mess with my commercial project. So I'm going to pull up this wedding project where I don't care if I mess up a little bit. And so I'm like following these instructions by Joe Simon. And it was like, I'm like, whoa, like this actually like works really cool for a wedding film. And then I'm like, you know, I used to be stuck in like, I got to use Tony Anderson from Music Bed for all of my wedding films, you know. But then I'm like, you know, I want to like use some different kind of music where it might be a little eerie, it might be a little, you know, mysterious, you know, because not all, you know, if we want to say that not all weddings are the same, or if we want to look a bride in the eye and say your wedding is going to be different, then we got to back that up, you know. Like in all, like their wedding may not be that different, but in the end they are different people.
Sure.
And their story is different, and we can have the opportunity to show it differently. And so I'm like, okay, I'm gonna stop browsing Music Bed for cinematic. I'm gonna start looking for other genres of music. And then I started looking up like cinematic electronic, and I'm just like, man, there are some cool songs in here. I could do some really great stuff. Then I just dropped cinematic and was just like looking up electronic, you know, post rock or whatever. And I'm just like finding all this stuff, and I'm like, man, I could really use speed ramping for this. Or I really like how this speed ramp works with kind of making the viewer like feel a little anxious, and then it speed ramps and then it slows down to this very soft, gentle moment. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I started doing that like, man, maybe like a year and a half ago. And then everybody else started doing it. You know, I'm not saying by any means I started doing
Jay
that.
is saying that he is the godfather of like speed ramps and glitches. And that's what he's saying right now.
No, definitely not. I am like, I don't remember who I saw doing it. I think I saw like Sculpting with Time doing it first, or maybe you know, Alex Douglas and Whitney Douglas.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can't remember who I saw doing it first. I'm like, oh man, they're doing it too. Like maybe this could be like something really cool like that starts happening. And then it did like really start to happen, and people were, I felt like it was a really great moment for wedding films when people were like, I don't have to do a very soft cinematic song and have it be getting ready, first look, ceremony, reception, grand exit. Right. And it's like everybody was doing something so different. And like, who cares if they were all doing speed ramps and glitches? Like, it just like opened up the freedom for people to feel like they could go outside of the stereotypical formula of a wedding film.
So my wife and I have really been realizing that, you know, not every couple is the same, like you were talking about. And you know, we might like to make, you know, cinematic type music with, you know, super emotional and crying and, you know, that kind of stuff. But that's not every single couple. And if what you were just saying really resonated with me, you know, if we're saying that, oh, we want to tell your story and we want to create something that's unique for you, then yeah, we need to start doing it. You know, you know, start when it comes to your music selection, in my opinion, is where I'm getting. You shouldn't pick the song that you want. You should pick the song that fits the couple. And so that really dictates how their film is going to go based on the music that you select. And so we're really trying to figure out ways to make things that are true to our couples and tell stories, you know, that way. One of the things that my wife keeps going on and on about is she hates our setup for first looks. You know, the groom standing there with his back turned and the bride tapping him on the shoulder, you know, whatever. Like, we're like, for every other major event that you have in your life, you know, like prom, you know, the guy doesn't stand there and she taps you on, he just walks to the front door and knocks on the door and opens it, you know, there she is. Like, you know, like thinking about ways to maybe rethink those kind of things. And I don't know what it is kind of about the wedding industry, why there's so much pushback about doing trendy things or doing things that are maybe a little bit different because they don't fit in the, you know, romantic box or, you know, whatever that may be. So I guess I appreciate, you know, your work and what you've done, that you've in a way opened a door been part of someone that's opened a door to be able to tell, create these wedding films that are a little bit different, but maybe end up being more true to the couple rather than true to the filmmaker, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think one thing that people often forget is, like couples will, I've had couples say like, "Oh, I really liked this wedding that you did. I want my video to be like that." And it's like, "Oh, I really like this song or this style of music or whatever." And then the day comes and it's just like not that vibe at all.
Exactly.
And it's not whatever. And like I think people need to remember who are in this business, like we're like the couple is hiring us because one, obviously like they like our work or they like our price point or whatever, but also like I find this a lot with the commercial work I do. They have something, I hate the word story because I feel like it's so overused, but they have a story that they want to tell, but they can't tell it. They don't know how to tell it.
Right.
And it's their story. But that's where we come in. We are the ones that are good at doing that. We're the ones that know how to tell their story better than they know how to tell their story. And like I learned that through weddings because they're just like, "Oh man, I never like noticed those little moments that you captured." And it's like, man, those like some of these little moments are so crucial to showcasing like their love for each other. Like it could be like just like how gentle this groom is with his new wife and like how he like is just like constantly putting his hand on the upper part of her lower back like everywhere he goes, and it's just like softly guiding her into these different rooms. It's just like showing like little moments or little details of like how he treats his wife is so crucial to explaining like his love for her.
Yeah.
And it's little things like they're not going to think of those things. And that gives us the opportunity to be the storytellers that we are, to be the filmmakers that we are, because they don't know how to tell that story. They just know their story. They're just like, "Well, yeah, we just love each other." Like, okay.
Yeah.
Well, what does that mean?
Yeah. No, that's good. That's good. Filming the whole day and then pulling those things out and figuring out how it all goes together. And again, like each couple is different and each wedding is different and how it all fits together is going to be different. And so again, for us, I think we're doing our couples a disservice if we're coming at every single one and treating them, very cookie cutter ish and treating them all the same because they're not the same. So, that's where I know my wife and I are heading and where we're going, trying to, have our work, have our fingers in it, obviously, and it has our style to some degree, but also have them be different enough and be unique to our couples, that we're creating for them. Another thing that I know you do, and again, this is becoming more and more a thing, and I think it's because, it just adds so much to the wedding videos, is sound engineering and sound effects and that kind of stuff. So when did you kind of start adding in sound rather than just speaking, that kind of stuff, ambient noises, Foley, that kind of stuff? When did you start doing that, and how would you say it has improved your wedding business by doing that?
Yeah, so I started I started doing that years and years ago. Like I would create a video, like my early wedding videos, and it's like he says part of his vows, and then it shows getting ready stuff, and then she says some of her vows, and it shows more getting ready stuff, and shows the ceremony, and blah blah blah. But like the only sounds were when they were talking, and it always like I never knew what it was, but my films always felt so empty. And like, the couples liked their videos, and I was just never like really satisfied with how they were, and I just couldn't put my finger on it. And then I watched, at the time, this guy was like my hero. His name's Colin Kabalka, and he had, he did wedding videos, and he kind of got out of that. Like he doesn't do that anymore. He hasn't done it for years, but, I just like heard just like it was when like the bride was getting her dress on, I could just like hear people talking, and I'm just like, Man, that's really nice. Like it makes me feel more like I'm there, like I'm
Yeah.
not just watching a music video. And so I was like, I'm just gonna start leaving scratch audio in and seeing how it sounds, and I'm just bringing the volume down a little bit. And like, you can't hear what people are saying. You hear people laughing, you hear people chatting and whatever. But it's just like at that time, I'm like, this was a game changer for me because it really made me feel more in the film versus just like something so like I mean, I almost want to say like maybe half-assed because
Yeah.
it just didn't feel complete. And then when I started doing more destination weddings and stuff outside, like weddings outside, I remember like I was using scratch audio and I heard birds chirping. I'm just like, dang, that's cool because it's outside and there's birds and they're chirping and like that's real to yeah, that's real to like
Yeah.
their day. Like it's not like anything that's fake. And then so I started recording my own sounds like on these like different film projects that I'd be doing where I'm in, areas where I can capture sound. I started just building my own sound library. And so anytime I needed like some really good birds chirping, I have like 10 different files of like 10 different birds chirping that are my recordings,
Yeah.
that I just want to use. Or same thing with wind, same thing with water, same thing with like a lot of different sounds. And then it got even crazier when lens distortions started creating their digital sounds outside of their lens flares and all that. I like first I listened to them and I'm just like, man, I would never use any of this crap for anything. And then I bought it anyways and I just started playing with it. And I was like, some of these sounds, like these like sub bass drops or these whooshes or these whatever these sounds were, they worked so well with some of my transitions. And it just like, it helped. It was like these sounds were like the cheerleader to these transitions. It just made these transitions flow even better.
Yeah.
So I started just like really like, before my focus was always color grading, like, oh, I'm going to spend so much time color grading. Like now I don't spend any time on color grading. Like color grading is so fast for me now. I have a process, I have a style that I like and I just do it. Now I spend the most time on my sound design and I spend the most time making that sound design feel real and not like it was added noise or added sounds or like I'm trying to do sound design. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you want it. I guess the mark of a good, sound engineer is going to be someone that you can hear it, but it's not like, it doesn't like stick out. Like it just blends in with everything else, right? So,
Yeah.
If you're listening to it and your sound design is like you can really hear it, on something maybe like a whoosh effect or, something, something like that, then, you maybe work on that. But yeah, just having those things in those transitions can really add so much. Sound is one of those things that if you watch one without the sound effects, I think the video would probably be okay. But if you turn it on and watch it and then turn it off after you've watched it with it on, then you're like, okay, there's something missing here. Like I need that. And it, when it comes to like wind or water or, like those kind of sounds, you might not notice it if it's not there and you don't really notice it if it is there. I think I'm saying my same point again, but then, you take it away and then you notice that something's missing. This is one of the things that Jay talked about whenever I went to this venture workshop was adding sound design and, stuff like a groom might be walking through a forest or whatever, and you just add, like crunchy leaf noise, as his footsteps or, waterfalls and, like that kind of stuff. And I've really started adding, ambient background noise and that kind of stuff to a lot of the films that I do. And now when I go back and watch my other stuff, I hate it because it's like that stuff isn't in there. One thing, you were talking about, like bride prep, brides getting ready and, you just have the scratch audio from the room of the girls freaking out, that the bride just put her dress on and that kind of stuff. Kind of a rule of thumb for me is when I'm creating a wedding video, if a mouth is moving, then there needs to be some audio to go with it. It could be, background mumbles or whatever, and you can't understand anything that it is. But if a mouth is moving, you should see, or I mean, you should hear something. And I think that has taken, I believe that's taken my work, kind of up a notch whenever I realized that phantom mouth movement, or I don't know what it's called. I'm sure it has a real name. That's kind of what I've called it. But I think that adding sound more so than the background music will really take your wedding videos and what other videos you're working on up a level. And go watch some movies, go watch some highly produced TV shows. Like, if the music's playing, you can still hear footsteps, you can still hear the buzzing of the cell phone, you can still hear a car driving by, you can still hear all of that stuff, but it's just mixed in a way where it just sounds all natural.
Yeah, and what's interesting is if you watch movies and you really pay attention to the music and the sound, in wedding videos, the music is always so loud, and it's so like, almost like it's like the focus of the video because the music is so loud. But if you watch films, Hollywood films or TV shows, the music is so quiet, and the focus is on the dialogue and the storyline and the characters. And so if you're creating a wedding film, one thing like I started doing was when I'm working on sound design, turning the music off and only focusing on those noises and the audio and how it fits. And if like some things don't always fit, sometimes you're like, ooh, I've got this cool drone shot and I want this whoosh going on when it transitions, and you could try it and it may just kind of be weird or feel forced or something like that. So you don't have to do it. But what's interesting is when you do that, when you turn the music off and you watch it and it still feels like a complete story, it's really fascinating, because then when you flip it and if you turn the music on and turn all those sounds off, it's just not good enough.
Yeah.
So it's interesting how we put so much emphasis on the music, and music is definitely a big part of these little highlight films. They really set the tone and set the mood, but I feel like they don't need to be the front seat of the film. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And I mean, the audio portion of it, and that includes, voiceovers or letters or vows or the music. I mean, that's well over half of your video, right? I mean, that's a huge part of it. And I think that so many people, especially when you're first getting started out, you're focusing so much on the visuals that you kind of neglect that audio side. And so, yeah, that's really, and another thing, people can forgive crappy looking footage, but you really can't forgive really bad audio sounds.
Yeah. Bad audio makes for a bad video.
Right. And so, I mean, it can be filmed with the best cameras and all that stuff, but if you have, not a good recording, or it's just mixed poorly, or, whatever, then that's going to stand out a whole lot more than the other way around. So,
yeah,
man, I really like that tip that you had there about if you're adding sound effects, turning the music off and watching it through. Because, sometimes you want them to be subtle. So sometimes, maybe you can't really hear it. You can kind of hear it, but you kind of can't. And then if you turn it off, then you can realize, like you were saying, oh, I'm just putting this in here because I want a sound effect or, something like that. It doesn't really fit.
Exactly.
That's good. So, okay. So another thing that you have just recently launched, and I know that you've been working really hard on this for over a year, right, is your drone masterclass.
That's right.
Yeah. So why don't you maybe talk just a little bit about what this drone masterclass is, and then, what's your pitch for, someone in the, wedding community who, we're not putting a ton of drone footage in our videos. Well, some people are, but what's the pitch for, someone who maybe has a drone, to maybe look into your masterclass?
Yeah. So, man, drones are like, they're such a weird thing to have been introduced to the wedding film world, the last 5 years or so.
Yeah.
And the first time I used a drone was for that first documentary film I made. And it was the Phantom 2 with the GoPro, and I couldn't see what was on screen. I just kind of like looked up at the drone and hoped that it was recording.
Right.
So it's just like it was cool. Like, man, I have a drone. I'm making a film, and I have a drone. It's so cool. So when I started using drones, it wasn't for weddings. It was for films, and then like I ended up getting like the Phantom 3 Professional or Phantom 3 Advanced. I don't remember what it was called. And that drone was just killer. And I'd done like all these adventure films, and I'd worked on some commercial projects, and I had this drone, and I'm like, I'm just going to make like a little drone reel. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to make a reel. I want to make it more just like a cool video of drone stuff, kind of have a little bit of a story to it. And then that's when I came out with this film called Perspective. I think it came out in like 2016 or something like that. And man, it like got so much attention, and it won like so many awards, and it got me like so much business just from like creating this little drone film. And it was basically like a lot of footage from like California and Utah and Arizona and Colorado and New Mexico. And it was just like, I had no idea it was going to get the response that it did. And like looking back at it now, it's like still one of those films where I'm like, man, I wish I'd done this differently, or this kind of sucked about this film.
Yeah, for sure.
And there's no ambient noises in it. Like, I wish I had put ambient noises in it. And what's interesting is I sent that film to the New York City Drone Film Festival, and it got in, and I flew out to New York because I was actually working on something else that was taking place in New York, and just like, I'm just going to go out to New York and go to the film festival too. And I got to meet Philip Bloom because he was one of the judges.
Yeah.
And Philip Bloom, he's just like, oh, I really liked your film Perspective, but I wish there was sound. And and that's like the worst Philip Bloom impression ever. But like, it's like, man, that just like, for me, that was just like a hard kick in the balls. Like, yes, Philip Bloom, you're right. I am stupid because I did not add any sounds in that. And it's just a music video. It's not even a film to me anymore. And so anyways, so yeah, it's just like I created these films that were not related to weddings, and I kept getting recognition for it. And it was really like a humbling experience, and it was a really fun experience. So I made another drone film that was called A Fleeting Dream, and it's really like it's one of my favorite films that I've made. But that's what got me opportunity with Samsung, and it got me opportunity with Amazon, because it's just like a bunch of cool organ footage, but it's kind of turned into a little bit of a story with the film, and it has all those sound effects to it. And so it's just like, man, once again, just gaining like all this opportunity and growth because of these drone films that I'm making. And so I came out with another film called Ethos, and that's by far like my favorite drone film that I've made. And it's all nature stuff, and I love it. It's like, it was really challenging to make a film that was engaging enough to be a standalone film on its own. And once again, it's like winning awards and gaining recognition. So my wife is the one who said, Jay, you need to teach people what you're doing so that they can do it too. And obviously, like, just, you need to charge for it too. And so I'm like, you're right. I am going to create an online platform, because I don't want to be going around like traveling places teaching people drone stuff, because I just want to be home with my kids. So I spent like a year working on like creating these classes of like, hey, this is how I do things. This is how I mean, it may not be the right way, but this is what's worked for me. And I created a whole course, and then I threw it away because I'm like, nope, this is not representing, what I feel is like I should teach people. So I refilmed stuff, and then I refilmed stuff again, and then I filmed stuff again. And then I came up with a whole other concept for Drone Masterclass to have it be something where it's not just the Jay show. And I realized I can bring on other, drone teachers to come in and teach stuff. And it's like you get their perspective on things. And of course they'd have like these people would have to have some sort of credibility with stuff. Can't just be anybody. And so I'm like,
that's why you haven't asked me to.
Well, you said it, not me. But yeah, so it just seemed like a really great way to share what I know, and then also share what other industry leaders know too, and not charge like a ton of money. Like there's master classes out there that are crazy expensive, and there's some that are like not horribly priced, and then there's mine, like I feel like mine's pretty cheap for what you get, but it's like it's enough for me to be able to put money back into to keep creating content for, because I'm always coming out with new classes for it and stuff. But it's not so overly priced where it's like intimidating and scary to like for somebody to do. And so things that are talked about are obviously techniques and styles of filming and styles of editing and styles of color grading, and like workflow and prep and all that stuff. But then it's also, I just like 2 weeks ago, I just filmed a class for it of like, hey, if you are filming people, like if your subject is a person and not a landscape, this is really like how I've done it. And this is also kind of like how Hollywood does it too. And it's not like you're doing a bird's eye view of the couple walking, and it's just like, that just doesn't feel natural. And the whole purpose of our footage is to have it be believable and not be distracting, and have our footage be something that like the viewer doesn't have to question what's going on, or something. Like if I watch really bad drone footage, it's really distracting, and it's like it's really hard for me to get past it. Just like if I hear really bad audio, it's really hard for me to get past that bad audio. If I see something that is colored really weird, and it's like the white balance is like making their skin tones look really bad, it just gets distracting, So I feel like our goal as filmmakers is to make everything be as believable as possible. And so I guess Drone Masterclass for wedding filmmakers can kind of help with that, of just making that drone footage more intentional versus just being drone footage. Because people are like, I feel like people expect you to have a drone now, and that may not always be the case. You may not need a drone, or if you do have a drone, I feel like people expect certain shots, but you can really wow them with how you use the drone, where they're just like, man, I never even thought that you could shoot this way with this drone and get that kind of outcome.
Yeah, that's great. It's another, another tool that you can have, and if you have it and do it well and do it right, you can start charging a lot more money for the things that you create and the things that you make. And so just having this tool to use the drones and have them be to enhance your story, not take away from it. I think that's going to add just so much.
Yeah. And whoever said, I'm sure people have always said this about drones. Oh, drones are just trendy right now. Like if we're real, drones aren't going anywhere anytime soon, and they're still going to be around, 10 years, 20 years from now in the filmmaking world. I feel like, they're trendy and overused, but they don't have to be overused. And it's almost kind of like time lapses were trendy and overused for a time period, but that's kind of calmed down, and like I still use time lapses in films. It's not something that it's just like gonna be here and then gone. So it's just a matter of learning how to make it so that it's intentional and not distracting.
Yeah. That's a big part in creating, wedding videos and creating your films. Just learning how to piece everything together in a way that's complete and not distracting. That includes drones or time lapses, or whether filming everything on a tripod or a monopod or handheld, or whatever it may be. work your craft, learn it, so that you can just be that much better at it. And so with, if you sign up, if any, of our listeners want to sign up for the drone masterclass, like where do they go? And then kind of, what do they get with that?
So, if you wanted to know more about Drone Masterclass, all you'd have to do is go to dronemasterclass.com.
Whoa.
Mind blowing, right? I was pretty pumped when I got that domain name. So yeah, dronemasterclass.com, and it's $349 for a lifetime membership. But I've got promo code right now, DMC Live. Drone Masterclass, DMC Live, and that knocks the price down to $300, and it's just that one-time charge, and you get access to all the current classes, but then you get access to all the future classes. So right now, at the end of this month, no, I'm sorry, it's October still. At the end of November, I will be going and filming 2 other teachers in LA who are pretty well known in the drone world, and then you'll get a notification of hey, these new classes are up, come check them out, and that's you'll always have that access. And then there's other things I'm working on, I've come out with my own drone masterclass LUTs, that I haven't released publicly yet, but all drone masterclass members will just have them for free, and then there's other things with some of the sponsors. MusicBed is a sponsor, and Lens Distortions is a sponsor, and Pond 5 is a sponsor, and they all have little things for all the members for Drone Masterclass.
Yeah. So what he's saying here is that it's a legit thing, guys. You get this isn't just some guy that's trying to take your money and give you a few things. There's tons of classes. The initial what it was a 12 courses or something like that, initially when you launched it. And then now, how often would you say that you're going to be adding new content?
So after I film those 2 teachers in November, I will be releasing a new batch of classes in December, and then another new batch in February or March, and then another new batch in May or June. So it'd be I would say consistently every 2 to 3 months I'll be adding just fresh new content, because holy crap, there's a new drone all the time, and there's new editing styles, new editing techniques, and there's new color grading techniques, and there's just new stuff that comes out all the time. Yeah. So I want Drone Masterclass to be keeping up with all this stuff.
Yeah, I really like that model. I really like that idea about how you want to, have all this stuff, but continue to add it, because the technology is changing, and things are updating and all of that stuff. So it's really cool. Also, the drones are just getting better and better and better as part, when it comes to especially camera quality and the things that they can do. And so it's definitely, if you're not in the drone boat, there's a reason that all of your couples are asking you if you have a drone, because they're just cool.
Yep.
Yeah.
They're cool. They are. And you know what? One thing that, this is a little bit off topic, but
what?
People always ask, what? People always ask me oh, do you charge for drone footage for weddings and stuff? And I say, no, I don't. And they're always like, whoa, why don't you charge for drone footage? You're the drone masterclass guy. Why don't you charge for that? And it's well, there's a lot of reasons why I don't charge for drone footage. And one, if I go to the venue and it just doesn't look good for drone stuff, or the weather doesn't permit for it, or whatever, man, I got to refund that bride, some of that money, because they're not getting any drone footage. 2, the venue may not even allow it, or the venue may allow it, but the FAA may not allow it. And then 3, it just may not really be necessary to have drone footage for the story, just to have drone footage. Mm-hmm. So that's why I don't charge for drone footage. Yeah. I bring my drones to some weddings. I don't bring it to all weddings. It's just, I do a little bit of research beforehand. It may just sit in my car, and I may not even take it out. And I don't think that that's a bad thing.
Yeah. Kind of my thing with the drone stuff is I view it a lot like music. Like I want to be legal, using licensed stuff and that kind of thing. And so, there's this venue in town that it's kind of in an industrial part of town that I would love to be able to, fly my drone over, but there's this arena that is like a no-fly zone over the arena.
Oh, yeah.
And it's close enough to it where, now are there hacks around it? Yeah, well, sure. But, I want to be, like legal and legitimate and, stuff. So how I do my business there. So, Jay, we're running out of time. Going to wrap up here in a second. So, if people want to, find you, online and reach out and, maybe ask you questions about your masterclass or, watch some of your super good wedding videos or some of your commercial work or whatever, like where can they find you?
So, wedding stuff would be everlyfilms.com, but I never update my website. So,
yeah, I was looking at your blog and there was a bunch of stuff from like spring of 2017 for wedding.
Yeah, I know.
Stuff.
Yeah.
I
know. So there's everlyfilms.com or vimeo.com/everlyfilms. For non-wedding stuff, there's jayworsley.com, but hey, guess what? I never update that. Or you could go to vimeo.com/jayworsley, or Instagram, and my handle is the letter J, the letter M, Worsley, because my middle name is Matthew, so it's JM Worsley. And I mean, I kind of post on there, and I feel like I'm like the worst at posting stuff, and yet somehow people are still hiring me. How crazy is that?
Man, you just ooze talent. So
whatever, dude. Shut up.
Yeah. So, and another thing, I know Jay mentioned this a little bit earlier. We start off. He is a part of the Venture Workshop, which there's not many wedding videographer specific workshops, going on in our country right now, and Jay helps teach and run one of them. You're having one like in a couple weeks, right?
Yeah, in like 2 weeks. It's our third venture workshop.
And that one's, I'm sure it's sold out by now.
Yeah, we sold out. We had to actually try to get some extra seats available at the venue, and we were able to get like 4 more, and then that sold out pretty quick.
Yeah, cool. And then are there plans, to continue this, in the future, or are you just kind of?
Yeah, like we definitely have plans for venture. I think we're still like between like me, Kaylin, Seth, and David. We're still kind of trying to figure out what we want venture to look like.
Yeah.
And it's just like this little baby growing, and we'll see how it grows. We'll see what happens with it, and yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's in the future. If that's something, you listeners are really interested in, I went, and it was a great experience, not from like the learning side, but also networking and just meeting people. And, I got to meet Jay, and I actually taught him some stuff, at the workshop.
That's true. You did.
Yeah.
You did. You taught me some like multicam stuff.
Yeah.
In Premiere.
Yeah.
Which I already knew, but I just didn't like utilize. And so you kind of showed me how you utilize it.
Right. So he's saying that I changed his life.
Life-changing, man.
Right. Now he's super organized.
I should have paid you.
Yeah, you can still pay me back for that. That'd be fine. I'd accept that. But. Well, again, Jay, thank you so much for being on episode 6 of the How to Film Weddings podcast. Glad to have you on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah. If you're listening, wherever you are, be sure to rate and review us so that other people can find us. Thanks again for listening. Until next time, see ya.
See ya.